Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, June 8th. Welcome to a very early edition of the Sports Note. This is actually something I've had in the can now for a couple of days since it came down and just never got around to recording the video. The blog's basically been done and just getting proofread, and I'll tell you why here towards the end. But we saw the blockbuster news on Tuesday of the PGA Tour Live Golf settlement, essentially where now the tours have merged. This is completely out of left field. Nobody saw this coming. And the reason why nobody saw this coming is the players weren't even looped in, either by Live or by the PGA Tour. To say that this was the idea of being blindsided is something that gets taken out of context or blown out of proportion depending on the scenario a lot in the world of sports. But this is taking it to a whole new level. We're talking about two rival leagues joining forces. This is, some people might think that this would be along the equivalent of the AFL NFL merger. This could be like the NBA ABA merger. It could be like the NHL WHL merger, the American and National League merger. This isn't anything like that. It's because those were upstart leagues that ended up getting absorbed and growing the game. This is something that the Live Golf Tour was failing in every aspect. Their TV ratings were in the toilet. The competition certainly wasn't there. The team format thing is a joke. And yet, the timing of this is extremely suspect. We had, we saw that the PGA Tour took a little bit of hit to their reputation a couple of weeks ago when Brooks Koepka, as I talked about here on the blog not long ago, that after Brooks Koepka won the PGA Championship. Now remember, Koepka defected to Live Golf, won a tournament earlier this year, won a $20 million purse, and actually just by that one win alone would have actually put Koepka fourth in the world golf rankings. But since he left the PGA Tour, he can't earn points, which means he's not eligible for, the FedEx Championship. He can't be listed in the world golf rankings because he's playing on a non-sanctioned tour. Because the Live Golf Tour hasn't been around long enough to qualify for those points, because any tour where those rankings go into play is a traditional 72-hole 4-day event, as opposed to the 54 holes that Live plays. Bryson DeChambeau left the PGA Tour, lost 30 pounds off of his frame, stopped killing the ball 350 yards, started, being a little bit more well-rounded in his game, and finished fourth last month. But we've got the U.S. Open coming up next week, and for the tours now to essentially merge, it's probably the weirdest timing of an announcement like this I can ever remember, especially when the RBC Canadian Open will tee off this weekend. Actually, will tee off today for this weekend, which is one of the more interesting tournaments every golf season. And it was 1 year ago, leading into the RBC Canadian Open, that PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan made the comments, quote, "Have you ever had to apologize for being a member of the PGA Tour?" Now, we know that Monahan was directly referring to the Saudi government having ties to the terrorist attacks on September 11th, and the second half of the argument is the we all know that the Live Golf Tour is backed by the Saudi Public Investment Fund to the tune of more than $2 billion, where they are trying to sport wash their image of corruption and violations against human rights, and that doesn't help matters much when you've made no apologies for that. You're playing on courses owned by a soon-to-be indicted, disgraced Cheeto in chief. Read between the lines on that. The other aspect of this is nobody knew that these talks were even really going on. And they're apparently, according to Monahan, the talks have been ongoing for about 7 weeks, considering the two tours had been locked in mediation and lawsuits stemming back for 7-8 months now. When the Live Golf officially started up last year, the PGA essentially blacklisted any of the players that defected, who said that they had to give up their PGA Tour cards, and then Live argued a multitude of things, but mainly that the PGA could not do that. Does Jay Monahan now come off as the most hypocritical commissioner in North American sports? More than Roger Goodell, more than Rob Manfred, and probably and I would actually say even more than clueless NHL commissioner Gary Bettman. Remember, Bettman's been trying to get hockey to work in the desert for over 30 years, and the Arizona Coyotes have never been to the Stanley Cup Finals and have now resorted to playing for the next 3 years in a college arena that only holds 5,500 people, and they've got no idea when they're going to get an arena built or where. They're trying to actually work out something with Scottsdale. It's like, just cut your losses and get them into a market that you can profit from. Oh yeah, Houston is the fourth or sixth biggest market in the United States, and they're begging for a team right now, but yet you want to keep them in Phoenix. But Monahan definitely took it on the chin with reporters on Wednesday. Australian golfer Jeff Ogilvy even told reporters that somebody called him out to his face in that meeting, calling him a hypocrite. And then there's the player backlash with this. Is how are these Live Golf players going to rejoin the PGA Tour? Is this going to is Live going to turn into a team event that players from the PGA can go over and join? Is it going to be more of an exhibition type tour, like a pro-am type tour? There's the idea that any of the players that are disgruntled now, and are very staunch in their beliefs, that they don't want to accept the Saudi money, and why would you, even though it would be a massive payday? The PGA Tour now essentially has monopoly on the sport of golf in the United States, in North America in general, because now they also control the Mackenzie Tour, which is based in Canada, and they also own the Q School type Corn Ferry Tour. And I'll get back to the Corn Ferry Tour here in a couple of moments. But where would the players go off and play? Because some of these guys are not going to go join Live. They're extremely soured by the PGA Tour to where they may only play in the majors. Could we see something where the players start to defect and start doing their own privately funded, until they can get some backers, their own a personal tour where it wouldn't even be, the best of the best? We know that like guys like Tiger or Rory or some of the biggest names out there would think of Justin Thomas, could potentially think of having the backing to go out and play a couple of exhibition tournaments and see what happens with this. A smaller, underdeveloped league getting absorbed by the major entity is nothing new, because there was a time when, remember when the XFL happened, the original XFL, then a lot of those players ended up going to the NFL. They actually tried to do it as an upstart league. There's all these minor league, essentially these spring and summer football leagues out there, that essentially give these guys basically a showcase, to be able to get a tryout with an NFL team or get signed, like the UXFL, like the XFL, like the Alliance of American Football from a few years back, and we know that a lot of these leagues, failed, trying to be as independent as they are. But if the NFL wanted to put a little bit of money into them, like they did, NFL Europe, which was essentially like an overseas minor league type system, some of those leagues could be a little bit more profitable, so to speak. But Rory did come out on Wednesday and said that he does feel like he's a sacrificial lamb now, and you have to agree with him. Rory was the most outspoken person against Liv, and even said yesterday, to follow up his comments, he still hates Liv. Can you blame him? The only good thing about this is now it's going to put more money into the players' hands. Even the players that finish further down the leaderboard, who have to pay their own travel, their own entry fees, their own essentially kind of room and board, their hotels, etc. when they get out there. So if a guy's finishing 30th in the tour, in an event, and he's only taking home like $60,000, who's to say that he's not spending 7-8 grand on the expenses for 3 or 4 days? So it's certainly gonna be more profitable for the players, but it's got to leave a very, very sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, because there's an overwhelming minority of people out there who support Live Golf, and this is essentially, this is essentially the PGA Tour, and especially Monahan, being complete and total hypocrites. The stories were right. What Monahan was called was absolutely correct. They saw that Liv was failing, but then it would be like me going out and marrying someone and taking her name. It's entirely ass backwards. You would absorb Liv. You would probably end up doing something with it. And Rory even said, he hopes that Liv is not around after this season, which I could completely see happening, that they completely dissolve Liv now that they've merged, or they figure out something else to do with Liv, to where some of that Saudi money still trickles in, but it's also trying to figure out a better way to invest that money to improve the game, improve the communities and everything. The Saudi Public Investment Fund wants to improve their image, do something with the money outside of paying golfers $20 million for a tournament that doesn't even matter, which is essentially an exhibition, to every few weeks. Now we've got the RBC this week, we've got the U.S. Open next week, and then the next Live event is not scheduled until 4th of July weekend. I believe it's down in Mexico. I haven't looked all that much, because quite honestly, when it comes to Live, I don't care. I've I watched maybe an hour's worth of coverage a couple of weeks ago, and it was some of the dumbest stuff I've ever seen. It was, and these were guys that I liked watching on the PGA Tour, and my opinion of them is completely soured. Um, the the I would say probably from a player standpoint or a media standpoint, the absolute worst thing about this is now Phil Mickelson gets to go out and brag even more, even after a lefty his won a major last year at the age of 50, 50 or 51, something like that, making him the oldest ever to do that. He's been very outspoken against the PGA Tour, um, considering he's won 6 majors. He's in the top 15 all time in majors. He's in the World Golf Hall of Fame. Um, Phil, just shut up and go back to doing your commercials. Um, if you're gonna if you're gonna make these kind of comments, um, best way would probably be use them as evidence in front of a judge or go on a podcast or something. But you're never going to win another major. You're never going to be relevant again. It's time to start getting ready for the senior tour. Um, Maybe a Ryder Cup or a President's Cup. But Phil, shut up because you got no leg to stand on here. You think you're essentially the voice of the voiceless. There's a lot of other guys who are making a lot more money and playing much better golf than you. Greg Norman wasn't this vocal when Liv burst out onto the scene. So Phil needs to shut up, but quite honestly, Rory needs to keep talking with this because he's right now he is the face of the PGA Tour against the argument of this merger, and this is certainly not going to dissolve um, the merger here, but it's definitely people are going to take Rory a lot more seriously than some other players out there because of the fact that Rory has won a number of majors, is currently the third ranked golfer in the world, um, is in the top 5 all time on the money list, is a bona fide Hall of Famer already at 34 years old, and has shown recently that he's still capable of playing at a very, very high standard. He's typically going to be on the first page of the leaderboard either at the start of or the close of Sunday at some point. He's going to be there. Um, it's also that when you've got a high profile player like this coming out and making these comments, I think the only other player on tour that could make these kind of comments and have them carry a lot more weight would be Tiger Woods himself, even though Tiger on a golf course has not been relevant or competitive in several years. Tiger's still the face of golf, even though I've said on this channel that golf needs to move away from that. So we're going. The Wise Guys show typically would be tonight being a Thursday, but we're actually pushing to Sunday this week and possibly for the next couple of weeks, and then we'll be back on our usual Thursday time slot. Um, we're going to be joined briefly by a very, very special guest. If you guys have watched some of the most recent shows, I would say certainly within the last 6 months, you know that there is one bucket list guest that I have been hoping would come on with us, and she has finally agreed. And yes, I did say she, and that is Natalie Turk of Sports Illustrated. Um, Natalie, I reached out to her about comments for this, and Natalie said that she would love to come on with us. So she will be on with us. We will be going live at 9 o'clock. We will actually try and finally get into a little bit more short form. We're going to keep it. We're going to keep it a lot shorter. We're going to try and limit it to no more than an hour and 15 minutes. But Mike and I, we've already got questions ready. For Natalie, we're going to talk. We're going to talk some NBA and NHL finals. We'll talk. We'll talk the Cleveland Guardians. We'll actually talk. We'll talk the Jacob deGrom injury. With all of that with the revelations came out with there, but we're absolutely going to devote a good chunk of the show to the Live and PGA merger with Natalie being a journalist and also a massive golf fan, and this is something that even the casual golf fan has an opinion about. And we might even have some other comments or conversations coming up, and so those are still in the works. So let me know what you guys think. Where do you guys stand on this? And we hope that you'll join us on Sunday night with Natalie. If you have any questions you'd like us to ask Natalie, certainly forward them along to either Mike or myself on Twitter, to post them down below. But we will see you guys Sunday. Take care. I will be back with you guys hopefully later on this week.